Have you ever heard a story so grand, so epic, that it feels like it has to be a blockbuster movie? Well, today we dive into one of the most foundational stories ever told. The tale of Moses and the Exodus. It's a story of oppression, miracles, and a journey to freedom that has shaped the world for thousands of years. Our story begins in ancient Egypt, a land of pyramids and pharaohs. The Israelites, descendants of Jacob, had settled there generations ago, but now they were enslaved. A new pharaoh, fearing their growing numbers, had subjected them to brutal forced labor. But his cruelty didn't stop there. He issued a terrifying decree. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. In this dark time, a Hebrew woman from the tribe of Levi gave birth to a beautiful son. For 3 months, she hid him. Bata Segro. She knew she couldn't keep him safe for much longer. With a heavy heart, she wove a small basket from papyrus reeds, waterproofed it, and placed her baby inside. She then set the tiny ark adrift among the reeds of the Nile, with her daughter, Miriam, watching from a distance. As fate would have it, Pharaoh's own daughter came to the river to bathe. She spotted the basket and sent her servant to retrieve it. When she opened it and saw the crying baby, her heart was moved with compassion. She knew he was one of the Hebrew children. At that moment, Miriam bravely approached and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. The princess agreed, and so the baby's own mother was paid to care for him. When the child was old enough, he was brought to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him and named him Moses, which means to draw out, because she had drawn him out of the water. Moses grew up in the splendor of the Egyptian palace. Educated as a prince, he had all the privileges of royalty, but he never forgot his true heritage. One day, as a young man, he saw an Egyptian mercilessly beating one of his fellow Hebrews. In a flash of rage, Moses struck the Egyptian, killing him, and buried him in the sand. The next day he saw 2 Hebrews fighting and tried to intervene, but one of them shot back. "Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was terrified. His secret was out. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. So Moses fled. He journeyed east, across the desert, to the land of Midian. There, exhausted, he sat by a well. The 7 daughters of a Midianite priest named Jethro came to draw water for their father's flock, but some shepherds drove them away. Moses stood up, defended the women, and even watered their flock for them. When they returned home early, their father asked why. They told him about the kind Egyptian who had helped them. Jethro insisted they invite Moses for a meal. Moses ended up staying, marrying one of the daughters, Zipporah, and becoming a shepherd for his father. For 40 years, he lived a quiet, humble life. In the wilderness, the prince of Egypt had become a desert shepherd. One day, while tending his flock on Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses saw something extraordinary. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. The flames danced, but the leaves and branches remained unharmed. As he drew closer to investigate, a voice called out from the bush, "Moses, Moses." It was the voice of God. He told Moses he had seen the suffering of his people in Egypt and was sending Moses to lead them out of slavery and into a promised land. A land flowing with milk and honey. Moses was stunned and full of doubt. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" he asked. He made excuses. He wasn't a good speaker. The people wouldn't believe him. Pharaoh would never listen. But God was patient. He promised to be with Moses, to give him the words to say, and to perform signs and wonders to prove his authority. He even appointed Moses' brother, Aaron, who was a gifted speaker, to go with him. Reluctantly, Moses agreed. He returned to Egypt with Aaron and confronted the most powerful man in the known world. They stood before Pharaoh and delivered God's message. "Let my people go." Pharaoh's response was scornful. "Who is the Lord that I should obey him?" Not only did he refuse, but he also made the Israelites work even harder. And so began a divine showdown. God, through Moses and Aaron, unleashed a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt. The Nile River turned to blood. Frogs swarmed the land. Gnats and flies infested every corner. Livestock died. People broke out in boils. Hail of fire and ice rained from the sky. Locusts devoured every green thing. A thick darkness covered the land for 3 days. With each plague, Pharaoh's heart grew harder. He would promise to let the people go in the heat of the moment, only to change his mind once the plague was lifted. Finally came the 10th and most terrible plague. God warned that the firstborn son in every Egyptian household would perish, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the lowest servant, and even the firstborn of the livestock. But he provided a way of escape for the Israelites. He instructed each family to take a perfect lamb, sacrifice it, and paint its blood on the doorposts of their homes. When the angel of death passed through Egypt that night, it would pass over the houses marked with the blood. That night, a cry of anguish rose throughout Egypt. The plague struck exactly as God had said. There was not a house without someone dead, including Pharaoh's own son. Shattered, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night. "Go, leave my people," he commanded. The Egyptians, desperate for them to leave, or hid Timon, giving them silver, gold, and clothing. After 430 years of bondage, the Israelites were finally free. They left in such a hurry that they didn't even have time to let their bread rise, carrying the unleavened dough with them. This is the origin of the Passover festival, celebrated to this day. An enormous crowd of about 600,000 men, plus women and children, marched out of Egypt. God led them not by the shortest route, but by a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night, a constant reminder of his presence. But the story wasn't over. Pharaoh's grief quickly turned to rage. "What have we done?" he fumed, realizing he had lost his entire slave labor force. He gathered his army, his finest chariots, and pursued the Israelites, trapping them against the shores of the Red Sea. The Israelites were terrified. With the sea in front of them and the Egyptian army behind them, they cried out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" But Moses stood firm in his faith. He told the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the salvation the Lord will bring you today." Then, as God commanded, Moses stretched his hand out over the sea. A mighty east wind began to blow, and all through the night, it pushed the waters back, parting the sea and creating a path of dry land right through the middle. The Israelites walked through the sea, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians charged in after them, but once all the Israelites were safely on the other side, Moses stretched his hand out again. The walls of water collapsed, crashing down upon the Egyptian army, the chariots, the horses, the soldiers not. One of them survived. The threat was gone forever. On the other shore, the newly freed people, led by Medium, sang and danced, celebrating their miraculous deliverance. Their journey through the wilderness to the Promised Land had just begun, and it would be filled with its own trials and triumphs. But that is a story for another day. The Exodus is more than just a historical account. It's a powerful story about hope in the face of despair, the fight for freedom against overwhelming odds, and the faith that can quite literally move mountains, or in this case, part seas. Think about it. This is a man who was born into slavery, raised as a prince, became a fugitive, and then was called to lead an entire nation out of bondage. His resume is unlike any other in history. It's a story of transformation, courage, and immense pressure. So, what made him so effective, and are his methods still relevant thousands of years later? Let's strip back the layers and uncover the leadership genius of Moses, like you've never seen him before. To really understand Moses as a leader, we have to start with his why. His core mission. It wasn't about personal glory or power. His driving force was a profound sense of justice and a divine calling to liberate his people. This is leadership lesson number 1. A powerful vision is your North Star. Moses didn't just say, "Let's leave Egypt." He painted a picture of a promised land, a future of freedom and dignity. For any leader, whether you're running a company, a small team, or even just your own family, having a clear, compelling vision is what inspires people to follow you, especially through tough times. Without that vision, the journey from Egypt would have ended in the desert. But a vision alone isn't enough. You need courage. And Moses' story is a masterclass in it. Imagine standing before the most powerful man in the world, Pharaoh, and demanding he let your entire workforce go. Not once, but repeatedly. This wasn't just bravery. It was strategic persistence. Moses faced rejection, threats, and escalating crises-plagues. Each time, he returned, unwavering. This teaches us that leadership requires resilience. You will face opposition. Your ideas will be challenged. But true leaders have the conviction to stand their ground for what they believe is right, even when they're shaking in their sandals. It's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Now, let's talk about one of the most underrated aspects of Moses' leadership, his ability to adapt and learn. When he first led the Israelites out of Egypt, he tried to do everything himself. He was the judge, the counselor, the administrator for hundreds of thousands of people. He was burning out, and fast. His father-in-law Jethro saw this and gave him some of the best management advice ever recorded. He told Moses to delegate, appoint trustworthy leaders over groups of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They would handle the smaller issues, bringing only the most difficult cases to Moses. This is a pivotal moment. Moses, the great prophet, had the humility to listen to advice and change his entire leadership structure. This is the birth of organizational hierarchy. Lesson number 3. You can't do it all alone. Great leaders empower others. They identify talent, delegate responsibility, and build a system that can function effectively. Are you trying to be the hero in every situation? Or are you building a team of heroes? Moses learned that true strength isn't in holding all the power, but in distributing it wisely. Of course, no leadership journey is without its crises, and Moses faced some of the biggest. The parting of the Red Sea is a legendary moment of faith, but think of it from a crisis management perspective. Your back is against the water. An enemy army is closing in, and the people you're leading are panicking, even wanting to go back to slavery. What does a leader do? Moses projected calm and confidence, even when he must have been terrified. He communicated a clear plan. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And then he acted decisively. In any crisis, your team looks to you. Your calm becomes their calm. Your decisiveness gives them direction. Panicking is not an option for a leader. But perhaps the most challenging part of Moses' leadership was managing the people themselves. Leading is not just about big, heroic moments. It's about the day-to-day grind of keeping morale high, resolving disputes, and dealing with complaints. The Israelites complained constantly. They complained about the food, the water, the journey. At one point, they even built a golden calf to worship while Moses was receiving the 10 Commandments. It was a complete betrayal. How did Moses react? With anger. Yes, he famously smashed the tablets. But he didn't give up on them. This is where we see Moses, the mediator, the intercessor. He went back up the mountain and pleaded for his people. He advocated for them, even when they were at their worst. This is an incredible lesson in empathy and forgiveness. A leader's job isn't just to lead the perfect followers. It's to lead real, flawed human beings. It's about having the patience to guide them, the strength to discipline them when necessary, and the compassion to forgive them and believe in their potential. It's about shouldering the burden of their failures and still fighting for their success. So, let's bring it all together. What can we, in the 21st century, learn from this ancient leader? First, lead with a purpose that's bigger than yourself. A powerful vision mobilizes people. Second, have the courage to be persistent in the face of adversity. Don't back down from your mission. Third, be humble enough to delegate and empower others. You are a leader, not a one-person army. Build a strong team. Fourth, in a crisis, be the calm in the storm. Your stability is your team's anchor. And finally, lead with empathy and forgiveness. Understand that people will make mistakes, but a great leader doesn't abandon their team. They guide them back to the path. Moses wasn't a perfect leader. The scriptures show us his moments of doubt, his anger, his frustrations. He was human, and that's what makes his story so powerful. He wasn't born a superhero. He was an ordinary person who was placed in extraordinary circumstances and rose to the challenge. learning and growing every step of the way. His journey shows us that leadership isn't a title or a position. It's a process. It's a commitment to a vision, to people, and to growth both for your team and for yourself. The story of Moses is more than just a historical or religious text. It's a timeless leadership manual, filled with practical wisdom that's just as relevant for a startup CEO in Silicon Valley as it is for a community organizer or a parent. His influence is a testament to the fact that the principles of great leadership vision, courage, humility, and compassion are eternal. What do you think? What's the biggest leadership lesson you take away from the life of Moses? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the hidden lessons in history's greatest stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.